Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Life, Death, and the Space Between podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Robbins, and this year we will continue to explore life, death, consciousness, and what it all means. This season on the show, I'm going to be doing a new question and answer podcast once a month, where I will be doing my very best to answer any of your questions. If you have a question you would like answered, you can send me an email at ldsb, that stands for life, death, and space between, questions @gmail.com. So for this podcast today, which is one of my first podcasts of 2020, I want to begin similar to how I ended last season. So if you weren't able to listen to that podcast, go ahead and head back. It's the very last one, podcast number 80 of my first season. And you'll hear my grandma's eulogy, which I know probably sounds depressing, but I was actually talking with a friend about how inspiring funerals can be. And hearing about people's lives, obviously sort of like the highlight reel of their life. But it got me to thinking about how we can start to live our own lives and think about the end and think about what we want people to say about us, not from an ego level, but really from a soul level. So today I'm going to share with you my grandfather's eulogy, which was equally as inspiring. And really, I believe in so many ways encompasses what it means to be human, what it means to be spiritual, even though he probably would not have identified himself as that, and what it means to really live your life in a way that makes a difference to the world. So here we go. Today is an extremely sad day. The end of an era for us. We all thought Grandma D and Grandpa Buddy were going to live forever, but unfortunately, no one gets out of here alive. While to many of you, he was Dr. Buddy, a renowned and beloved pediatrician, to us and our kids, he was and always will be our Grandpa Buddy. The sweet, cute, loving, devoted, feisty, sometimes not always so complimentary, but you never questioned what he was thinking, Grandpa Buddy. While this day is difficult, I want to look at Grandpa Buddy's life as a life that was extremely well lived and a life that was truly devoted to making a difference in the lives of others. That is what life is all about. While this eulogy is for Grandpa, it is also for our children, some of whom will know him well and will remember him, but many of whom will not. So here are some of the lessons Grandpa Buddy taught us and the lessons we hope to pass down to our children and one day to their children. To be Grandpa Buddy's grandchildren and great-grandchildren was truly a gift. Everybody that came into contact with Grandpa immediately fell in love with how adorable he was. But what did it truly feel like being his grandchild? Well, I can tell you what it felt like. It was what I imagine it feels like to be royalty. You felt like you were special. Special because we knew what Grandpa Buddy meant to the community, to the people he treated, to the world, but also what he meant to us and what we meant to him. Special because you knew that when you said you were Dr. Sherman's grandchild to almost anyone who grew up in the area that we did, they would know exactly who you were and that in some way you were something special because he was something special. But special because everything Grandpa did, he did with integrity, which resulted in a great deal of respect. Lesson number 1 we learned from Grandpa: live your life with integrity. For a man who knew the development of children more than almost anyone, I would marvel at his fascination as he looked at our children with wonder and amazement as they met their developmental milestones, as if it was the very first time he had seen a child do something. But it wasn't just children he marveled at. Grandpa marveled at life, at a sunset, at a motel off the side of the highway, at a meal my mom made him almost every Sunday night so he could spend time with his grandchildren, and the cost of a corned beef sandwich today. Lesson number 2, appreciate the simple things in life and find something special in everything you do and enjoy everything to the fullest. Grandpa Buddy was a proud man. He was proud of what he did, of the difference he made, of the people he touched, proud of the family he had. When you called his home, the famous 835-2614, he would answer the phone, "Dr. Sherman?" He was a doctor to everyone and knew the answer to any question you had. Just last week, as his memory was failing, which was completely frustrating to us and to him as he was a brilliant mind, he was kind of like your olden day Alexa. My sister showed him a rash on his youngest grandchild. He looked at it and without flinching said ivory soap and Pond's cream. You could see the pride in his eyes that we even asked him, that what he said mattered and that he still had it. Lesson 3, be proud of whatever you do, and whatever you do, do it with pride. While I know today is about Grandpa, it is hard not to mention Grandma and Grandpa together, as that is how they belonged. As I was at my parents' house last night, looking at albums of celebrations, when you grow up in a family, you know your traditions, and it seems normal. You assume what you do is what everyone does. It wasn't until my brother's wife entered the picture that she pointed out that not every family gets a cake and sings to the tune of Happy Birthday for every single possible celebration. This was Grandpa and Grandma. Everything was celebrated. We celebrated their last 3 big anniversaries, 60, 65, and 70, with huge events, but we also celebrated just being together. And those celebrations typically ended with us sitting around a table, listening as Grandpa recounted a story or a joke that inevitably we had probably heard before, but that always made us laugh to the point of crying. Lesson number 4, never miss an opportunity to celebrate life and laugh together. The legacy of this family was set by 2 amazing people who loved us so deeply, and we loved them. From Grandma Dee and Grandpa Buddy, there are 27 of us. 27 of us and all of you. All the hundreds, if not thousands of people he touched. The lives he changed, and the lives he saved. While Grandpa's office and home was filled with trinkets and treasures, we were his true trinkets and treasures, and our children even more so. They knew it and felt it in their souls. Lesson 5, treat the people you love as your trinkets and treasures. Spend time with them and never take that time for granted. The reason Grandpa Buddy's life meant so much to us and to everyone in this room is because he cared. He listened to people, really listened to people, and everyone he came into contact with felt like they really mattered. They meant something to him. This is probably most evident in his daughter and son. My mom is probably one of the most devoted daughters a parent could ever ask for. She did everything for Grandpa, particularly in this last 8 months of his life when my grandma was no longer there, because he mattered to her and she mattered to him. That being said, we have a standing joke that my mom could break her back for Grandpa, and we know he adored her, but his son Richie walked on water where Grandpa was concerned. And in so many ways, Grandpa's legacy lives on professionally through his son, Richie. Why? Because in the same way Grandpa made people feel like they truly matter, Richie does too. And I know all of us, each and every person in this room, felt the impact of mattering to Dr. Buddy, Uncle Buddy, and our Grandpa Buddy. Lesson 6, matter. Matter to the world, matter to the people you come in contact with in your life, your school, your profession, but most importantly, make the people you love know they matter to you. I leave you with this today in hopes that you will go out there and start to write your own eulogy, your own story about what you want your life to look like, particularly as we embark on a new year, 2020, and really think about how you want to live your life backward. If you have a question about today's podcast, you can send me an email at ldsbquestions@gmail.com. Also, if you like this podcast, you can listen anywhere you get your podcast. Just hit subscribe, and every week it will pop up in your mailbox. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Amy Robbins, and you can always send me a DM there as well. Although if you have specific questions, please send them directly to my email box because that's where I will be doing the Q&As from. Have a great week. Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Curious about what comes next and what it all means? You can subscribe on iTunes. Just go to podcasts and find Life, Death, and the Space Between and hit subscribe. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Amy Robbins. Ask me any questions you might have, let me know what else you'd love to hear about, or just share your story. I can't wait to hear from you.